안녕하십니까?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shin Ji-hye from the TAEJAE Future Consensus Institute. I would like to thank participants for joining us on this warm spring day. The forum today, titled The Age of AI, the Future of Global Security, is hosted by the TAEJAE Future Consensus Institute and co-organized by TAEJAE University, TAEJAE Research Foundation, and Chosunilbo. The forum is the third in our AI forum series, and it follows two previous forums held last April. The TAEJAE Future Consensus Institute prepared this forum to discuss the potential global security threat triggered by technology that is out of human control and to seek a new global governance to respond in advance against potential crisis. We are providing simultaneous interpretation into Korean and English. So for those of you on site, please press channel 1 for Korean and channel 2 for English on your receivers. First, let us welcome President of the TAEJAE Future Consensus Institute, Kim Sung-Hwan, for the welcome remarks.
안녕하십니까?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced, I am Sung-Hwan Kim, President of the TAEJAE Future Consensus Institute. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you to Age of AI and the Future of Global Security Forum, co-hosted and organized by our institute and the Chosunilbo. First of all, I would like to thank former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and also our moderator, former Yonsei University President Kim Yong-Hak, for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us today. And I would also like to extend my deepest gratitude to the experts from the US, China, and South Korea who will share their insights with us. We believe that the participation of these experts from all three countries will make this forum and the discussions here more richer and more meaningful. Since ChatGPT was announced in 2022, it is already hard to imagine a world without AI. AI is permeating not only our industries, but every aspect of our everyday lives. Along with the hope that AI could make our lives much easier and richer, there is also a growing concern that AI is catching up with humans at an alarming pace. In 2023, that would be last year, Google's Gemini Ultra outperformed humans on the massive multitasking language understanding test, reminding us that singularity in which AI outperforms humans is imminent. In March of this year, the war in Ukraine saw the first AI drone attack enemy forces without human control, raising concerns that AI outside of human control could threaten the security of humanity as a whole. There are concerns that this is increasingly becoming a reality. Not only can AI facilitate the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, but it can itself be a workable weapon of mass destruction in its own right. The security threats posed by AI are grave. The world must come together to address the global security threats posed by AI before it is too late. The US, China, and other AI leaders must create global governance that can respond to these security threats. I hope that the forum today serves as a small but meaningful step towards that end. Lastly, allow me to thank our distinguished guests, panelists, and participants for attending today's forum. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다, 원장님.
Thank you very much, President Sung-Hwan Kim. Please give him another warm applause.
이제 본격적으로
Now we will begin the discussion in earnest.
오늘 포럼의 기조 연설은
The keynote address of today's forum will be delivered by an important guest. The keynote speech will be delivered by the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon.
Chairman Kim Do-yeon, President Kim Sung-Hwan of the TAEJAE Institute, Chancellor Kim Yong-Hak, and distinguished panelists. Experts, it's a great pleasure to meet you in this very important forum. I'm wondering why I'm only speaking in English while President Kim Sung-Hwan has spoken and Master of Ceremony is also speaking in Korean. In any way, it's a great pleasure for me to be invited to address such an important and timely topic as artificial intelligence, AI, and its impact on global security and humanity. Artificial intelligence is a double-edged sword. It can make human lives both better and worse. It is versatile and surprisingly useful, like a digital Swiss Army knife. However, if it is left unregulated, it can pose a grave threat to the very existence of humanity. The breakneck speed of AI advancement poses daunting challenges. We are woefully unprepared for the looming advent of artificial general intelligence, AGI. Once we pass this tipping point, AI may escape human control for good. We do not know how much time is left to prepare for us. It could be as short as 5 years, as some experts said. It is not just the speed of AI's progress that scares us. AI can be a formidable spoiler. It can create killer robots. It can mislead humanity into an unintended nuclear winter. It can proliferate the risk of terrorism involving weapons of mass destruction if it is in the hands of the terrorist. Potential perpetrators can design, procure, and deploy biochemical weapons more easily. This is well illustrated by a series of research. In one test, AI managed to suggest 40,000 new weapons-grade chemical agents in just 6 hours. In another, it is provided detailed information about how to maximize casualties using lethal pathogens. Let me share another recent example. Last year, a simulated test by the US Air Force revealed that AI could attack friendlies, not only enemies. An AI-powered drone ended up attacking its own base and killing the pilot, because this pilot, knowing that there was an accident, the pilot ordered it to abort the mission. Then this AI killed the pilot himself. These unprecedented risks present a new set of challenges for us. The first, there is no international consensus on how to regulate the development and use of AI for malicious purposes. In particular, major players, including technologically advanced states and tech companies, are trying to set their own rules and principles. They diverge in their understanding of fundamental issues such as risk assessment, transparency, as well as safety and ethical standards. And their inability to find a common path forward has been a major hindrance to building a stable, unified, and inclusive global order for AI. Second, even the wealthiest and most influential national governments lack the capability to contain the AI competition alone. Without common international regulations, players in both the public and private sectors have the incentive to dodge domestic restrictions. They will prefer to reroute their work towards places with fewer legal, political, or technological constraints. No government can stop this race to the bottom single-handedly. Normally, this is mostly in the hands of some scientists and some business companies. The government has not been able to control all these matters. Only, therefore, I have been speaking out already several times, a truly international response can address these challenges. Otherwise, unbridled competition and disorder will be perpetuated and even escalated. In this context, we welcome the recent unanimous adoption of a resolution on AI by the United Nations General Assembly. But as you know very well, the General Assembly resolutions do not have any binding force unless it is done by the Security Council. Even Security Council resolutions are not being implemented as fully by some countries. North Korea is one of the good examples that they do not care. Whatever organization of the United Nations have been taking actions. However, in any way, this must be understood as the lowest common denominator for a solution. It has neither much substance nor teeth. The General Assembly, as I said, resolution doesn't have any enforcing power or teeth, as I said. We need to take a step forward from here. We need to expand common ground for the major powers to build a credible international institutions for AI governance. This is why the elders, where I serve as a vice chair, this is a small group of just 12 global leaders, former presidents, prime minister, or Nobel Peace Laureate. I was never a president or prime minister or Nobel laureate, but as a former Secretary General, I'm taking this vice chairmanship of the elders. We have made the strong commitment as well as some letters to the world leaders and editorial board, etc. It calls for the creation of a global multilateral institution like NPT or IAEA to regulate the nuclear weapons. But even with IAEA and NPT, with the 5 nuclear weapon states, NWS, then there are already 4 outside of this NPT regime. So who knows what will happen? Even though we may have this international regime now, today, there may be some other bad guys or countries who will try to manipulate this kind of things. We proposed drawing on the panel of, as I said, NPT and the IAEA. But we have a long way to go. A number of institutional issues remain unanswered. The journey ahead will be a full of challenges and hurdles. But we have no other choice but to try for a future safer and better for all. We must find a path that can ensure safe and sustainable development and use of the AI. The challenge before us is global. The solution should be a truly global one. It should not be left to any business companies or some group of scientists. I sincerely hope that this forum will serve as a beginning of that crucial journey. Before I conclude, just out of my mind, I have to confess, as you are already aware, I do not know much about AI. I'm just confessing. I'm just ignorant. I do not know anything about AI. Therefore, I hope there should be no questions. The question should be addressed to our distinguished panelists. So I'm just stepping down with so light mind. But I'd like to tell you then why I am speaking this. As one of the global citizens, and I'm the only living UN Secretary General, unfortunately, or fortunately. So all my predecessors have left this world, so I feel a sense of responsibility, moral responsibility, even though I do not know anything. So it is an issue of, it may be a distant future, but I think it may happen, as I said, within 5 years, within 5 years. In that regard, sometimes I think I'm a lucky man living in this 21st century, enjoying all highest technology and knowledge. Everything is available. But suddenly, this AI has come out, which I do not know anything. Therefore, then, with all these AI technologies moving on, I think in the future, in not too distant future, our children, or I think surely grandchildren, will pity us. How come my grandfather lived in this poor society? But I can tell you that we are much, much better. Think about our kings, Joseon or Korea dynasty or whatever Europeans. We can pity them. How difficult life, however powerful, luxurious life they might have. That was the limit. So I think I'm not opposed to the advancement of AI technology. I think a scientist and government should go on, but make sure that there should be a firm, forcible, international governing regulation, governing institution. And that's my urge when you discuss this matter. Otherwise, we may regret that one day there is no guarantee that this technology may be in the hands of very crook guys like Hitler or some other bad leaders, which will be used politically for their own purpose. So let us keep our minds on that point, and I'm fully supporting to make this world much, much better, convenient for our succeeding generations. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
기조연설을 해주신
Thank you very much to our keynote speaker, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon.
반 총장님께서는
Secretary General Ban Ki-moon highlighted the need for a new global governance amidst a global security crisis that is being brought on by AI. Before we begin the discussion, we would like to take a moment to take a commemorative photo. I would like to invite our discussant, hosts, and organizers to join us on the stage for the photo.
주시면 감사하겠습니다.
하나, 둘, 셋. 네.
지금부터 2부 토론 세션을
We will now
시작하겠습니다.
begin the discussion session.
김원수 태제 미래전략연구원
And we will begin the session with a presentation by Mr. Kim Won-Soo, Ambassador Kim Won-Soo, who is the chair of the International Advisory Board of the TAEJAE Future Consensus Institute. He has served as a diplomat and international civil servant for more than 40 years and has served as the President's Global Security Advisor, Foreign Affairs and Trade Secretary, and later he also served as Undersecretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs at the UN, where he coordinated the UN's response to global challenges at the highest level. Please welcome him with a big hand to the stage.
예, 안녕하십니까?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
영원한 보스인
Former Secretary Pan Ki-moon is my boss, so I will also be delivering my presentation in English. We have our expert panelists from US and China.
I will speak in English, following the example set by my eternal boss, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. And my points are basically to highlight the main points made by President Kim Sung-Hwan and Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and I will elaborate on the rationale behind those main points. The first challenge we have is that technology development is accelerating with big giant steps, while normative framework is moving at a very slow pace, snail's pace. So as a result, the gap between the technology and norms is widening with each passing day. So normative deficit is growing, while we do not know what lies ahead of us. And this may create catastrophic consequences for the whole humanity. Why? Because we have two inherent risks with AI technology development. First is fear of loss of human control. The second risk is weaponization risk. As already said by Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, I'll make a quick point. Nobody knows how soon artificial general intelligence will arrive. It may be super artificial intelligence, which may pass the whole intelligence of humanity combined in 5 years. Elon Musk predicted it may come in 2029. And also, AI drone kills human operator is again the example of loss of human control. And weaponization risk is not only the killer robots, but also AI use of biochemical weapon threat. So weapons of mass destruction threat. And here we have 2x2 diagram. The left side of the diagram is still we keep human control. The right side of the diagram indicates machine, AI control. And we are here at centaur war fighting, like Centaurus in Greek mythology. Animal body with the human brain. So the taboo of not giving control of warfighting to machine has been maintained until recently. But last week, it was broken in the Russian-Ukraine conflict. For the first time, the control of drones was delegated to AI to kill the enemy target. So we already entered second stage we call mosaic warfare. Still, strategic warfighting decision-making is reserved for humans, but tactical warfighting decision-making is delegated to machines. So we have to assume soon mosaic warfare also will lead another type of warfare we call Minotaur, like Minotaurus in Greek mythology. Human body, but machine brain, animal's brain. So these three types of warfare, we have to assume may be very hard to reverse. But then, if nothing is done now, it may lead to the fourth stage, AI general warfare, in which singleton type of the control tower, but machine control tower, dominates both tactical and strategic warfighting decision-making. So most of security and military experts agree on one thing. We have to do something now before it is too late to avoid the arrival of AI general warfare. Second risk, weaponization. This is already referenced by both President Kim and Secretary General Ban. Here, biochemical engineering is facilitated with the aid of AI, but also that technology made entry barrier to biochemical weapons much lower than before. Anybody can access it through the dark web and other malicious sources. And also, autonomous weapon systems are emerging already, like mobilities in the air, drones, and mobilities on the ground, like tanks, mobilities under the sea, like maybe AI-controlled submarines. But then we'll soon see the emergence of killer robots, robot soldiers, as we saw in the movie Star Wars. And human soldiers cannot be a match, because machine soldiers can be reproduced quickly, and so killing them doesn't mean much. So there is an effort how we can deal with these growing risks, and as Secretary General Ban said, it's very clear we have to find the international solution. Why? First of all, limits of national measures. Because no matter how stringent one country can find to regulate or control AI technology development for malicious purposes, it is not effective, because there is bound to be the race to the bottom. Technology developers will find a way, will find the loopholes in some other countries. So challenge here is how we turn the race to the bottom to the race to the top. And that is not possible without international solution. But again, on international solution, we have serious structural problems, because currently we have maybe 193 different national approaches, as much as the number of UN member states. But if we pick 3 representative national approaches. On one extreme, US approach stands, preferring national self-regulation, leaving every solution to the market. On the other side, state control by the state, Chinese, and EU stands in the middle. So how we can bridge the gap? And fortunately, ReAIM Summit, which we call Responsible AI in Military Domain, started last year, and recently, first ever UN General Assembly resolution was adopted, but it sets the only lowest common denominator. No substance, no teeth. It is good to confirm international law must apply to responsible AI use. But then question, the devil is in the details. Which principles, which norms of international law must apply? There, we don't have a consensus, and there was a proposal to create new agency along the lines of IAEA. So maybe we may have name, like IAIA. But except the name, we don't have any agreement on the substance, because AI technology is qualitatively different from nuclear technology because it is intangible software and diffused. And entry barrier is so low. So very hard to manage these challenges, and any institutional effort must fill all the columns of these templates. Mandate, how to implement it, and what organization structure we need to have. And to have the answers on all these questions, first task is to build global consensus. And without global consensus, we don't have norms like NPT. Without norms, we don't have institutions like IAEA. So how we should find the consensus is the first question we tackle, but the challenges involving AI technology are so wide and deep. And we cannot solve all these problems all at once, overnight. But one good thing for consensus building is consensus is different from unanimity. Unanimity means all 193 countries should agree. Consensus is not given, but it can be made. It can be engineered. Question is how we persuade key players to find a path forward. And these are the efforts ongoing on 3 tracks: government, private, and public-private tracks. And we believe that the first step is to identify what is the fundamental issue, most fundamental issue, where key players share common concern and have least political differences. And that focus, in our view, can be how to ensure responsible state behavior in military domain of AI. And the objective should be how to minimize the security risks posed by large-scale AIs. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm afraid I may be running out of a little time, but as Secretary General Ban emphasized, this journey will be tough, long, and bumpy. There will be a lot of hurdles, a lot of challenges. But we don't have any other choice but to keep trying. And we have to stay the course. And I sincerely hope that today's forum will be the beginning of that institutional journey ahead of us. Thank you so much.
네, 대사님 감사합니다.
Thank you, Ambassador.
발표를 해주신
I
김원수
would
대사께 다시 한번
like
박수
to
부탁드립니다.
put our hands together once again for Ambassador Kim
장관
Won-Soo.
토론자께서는 대담 진행을 위해
Let us
무대 위로
now
올라와
invite
주시면
the moderator and discussant to the stage.
오늘 토론의 좌장은 김용학 전
Today's
연세대학교
discussion will be moderated by
총장님께서
Kim Yong-Hak, former president of Yonsei University. He served as the 18th president of Yonsei University and has long been committed to the innovation of education in Korea. He is one of the first sociologists in Korea to study social network theory and has been conducting research on the relationship between technological advancement and social transformation. I'd like to turn the mic over to President Yong-Hak Kim.
네, 방금 소개받은 김용학입니다.
As introduced, I'm Kim Yong-Hak.
온라인, 오프라인으로
I would
참석하신
first like to
여러분들께
thank our participants joining us both on and offline.
반기문 제8대 유엔
And I would also
기조연설로
like to mention the keynote speech delivered by a former UN Secretary General Pan Ki-moon. It's a great honor to be moderating a session at such a prestigious event. I actually majored in sociology, and perhaps that is why I'm being asked to moderate so often. This session is a discussion session, and in the previous session,
이슈들이 있는지에 대해서 논의를 하고요.
actually in the first session of our session, we will talk about the military use of AI and key issues in that domain. And in the second session, we will be talking about artificial general intelligence and its implications for humanity. So this session will be divided in those two parts. And we will be allocating 25 minutes to each session. So that means that our panelists and discussants will be given 5 minutes for comments. So after 50 minutes of discussions with our panelists and discussant, then we will open the floor for questions from the floor and also from our online participants. And that will last for about half an hour. And before we move on, I would like to introduce our panelist. Ambassador Kim has also been introduced, so I will skip his introduction. I would like to introduce Yong-Won, who is a former military reporter for the Chosunilbo.
유영원 기자님은 20년
He has covered the Ministry of National Defense for more than 20 years and holds the record for covering the military beat for the longest in Korea. So it is a formidable career, and he is also the first military journalist in Korea. He is a leading expert in the field of military security in Korea. Please welcome him with a big hand.
다음으로는 해외에서 온라인으로
Next, I would like to introduce our two panelists joining us online. First up is Graham Webster, who is a research at the Center for International Security and Cooperation at Stanford University. He is editor-in-chief of the Stanford New America Digi-China project, which analyzes China's digital policy and discourse. He is a leading researcher in the field of Chinese cyber policy, and I understand that practically everybody in this domain knows him. And so please welcome him with a big hand as well.
Dr. Webster, can you say hello just to check the microphone is working? Just say hello.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We can hear you. 네, 한번 체크해 보고 싶었습니다.
Yes, so we can hear him fine. And next is Lu Chuanying, who is a senior research fellow at the Shanghai Institute of International Studies. Dr. Lu is the deputy director of the Institute of Public Policy Innovation and director of the Center for International Governance of Cyberspace at the Shanghai Institute of International Studies. His research focuses on international governance in cyberspace, with a particular interest in China's role in building international rules for the development of AI.
집중하고 계시다고 합니다. 그럼 첫 번째 토론 라운드.
Now, without further ado, we will begin the first round of discussions.
김 대사님께서 모두 지적하신 대로
We have heard from UN Secretary General Pan Ki-moon and also Ambassador Kim. And I think AI is bringing to the fore a potential crisis in the global security arena. And they have both called on the need for international governance for AI. They have both mentioned that there is an urgent need for such governance structure. AI has the potential to give great benefits to humanity, but at the same time, it holds great risks. And so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. And many countries' interests are conflicting very sharply. So it is very difficult to regulate AI development. Ambassador Kim talked about the features and characteristics of AI and how that lends it to be difficult to be regulated. Ambassador Kim pointed out that AI is intangible. And so it is very difficult to manage and regulate. And he also talked about how it is dispersed and it is distributed around the world. It is ambient in a sense. So it is very difficult to regulate. And added to that, the entry barrier of using this technology is very low. For instance, Llama, these open source AI is considered very easy to use. So there's almost no barrier. And because of these three characteristics, it's very difficult to regulate. And I would actually like to add one more point. And that is that AI, unlike nuclear weapons, is a product of the market. AI brings together capital, consumers, developers, investors. And so there's so many conflicting interests, and it's intangible. And so in a capitalist country, it's very difficult for the government to just simply step in and intervene and regulate. And so the topic at hand right now is the military use of AI. And so I think actually this domain, it would be an easy area to reach an agreement. And I believe that coordinating among different countries' interests would be relatively easier. So I think that it is appropriate and timely to deal with this domain and topic first. And if we make wins in this domain, we might be able to expand it to other areas regarding AI. As proposed by the presentation, we need responsible states if the AI is to be used in a responsible manner. If the using actor is not responsible, they would be a terrorist organization. So I think we need appropriate norms and we need the necessary rules. But as mentioned earlier, countries are approaching this in very different ways, and so it's very difficult. But I think that if we were to narrow the differences, it won't be entirely impossible to come up with regulations, especially for the military use of AI. And I think if we can make a win in this area, we can expand the wins into other domains of AI. And so before we begin in earnest, as an ice-breaking session, we heard from two presenters. We had a keynote speech and we had a presentation. And I would like to give our panelists 1 minute to comment on what you have heard so far. And I would like to ask for comments in the order I introduced you, Mr. Yu, and then Mr. Webster, and then Dr. Lu, and then Ambassador Kim. So I will give you 1 minute to comment on what you've heard so far. Honorable Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, thank you for your keynote speech. It was very impressive, and I was impressed with the specific examples, and I did gain some insight. What you mentioned, that we may have less than 5 years to prepare, I think that stuck with me the most. One thing I would like to mention is that you mentioned this AI simulation test by the U.S. Air Force. This was covered heavily by the media. As I understand, the U.S. Air Force denied this fact. It may be that the story itself is false, but it may be because the repercussions are too huge. But when it comes to military use of AI, I think that we should not underestimate, but we should not overestimate either. So we need to see it for what it is.
Lu? Webster, sorry.
Okay,
1 minute.
I think I'm next. Yes. First, I just want to say thank you to the whole TAEJAE team for having me and on such a distinguished panel. I wish I could join you in person in Korea, but it's just not possible this week. I just started teaching my spring class a few hours ago. The topic is so important, and the two presentations from Secretary General Ban and Ambassador Kim gave me one big idea, which is that, of course, we know the United Nations has limits in what it can do. The UN General Assembly lacks force, and even when the Security Council takes action, not everyone follows its mandates. However, there is something special about the United Nations. And when Ambassador Kim presented the pyramid of consensus at the bottom, norms in the middle, and then institutions, it made me think that when it comes to AI broadly, or perhaps more specifically in weapons, but I think it can be a broad idea. The original order that's suggested is that first you might need consensus to build norms and then to build an institution to enforce and uphold the norms. I think today with artificial intelligence, the world knows that this topic is important, but they don't know exactly which problems we face yet. So we might actually find that there is agreement among a great many states that there's a need for an institution, and once there is an institution, this can be a venue for identifying problems and thinking about norms that we might use to navigate them, and finally reaching consensus about rules and practices. So it may be, this is my reaction to the first remarks, we may be going in an opposite direction where it's urgently necessary to form a body for us to begin to find the solutions and really to understand the problems, because it won't work in the opposite direction. We don't have, for instance, with the law of the sea, we had many thousands of years of experience of different states operating at sea, and then we built toward a UN convention that took a great deal of work. Now we simply know that we have new things coming, and we'll find out what they are. And I hope that the United Nations is one important forum for that.
Thank you. Next, Lou, please.
Thank you, moderator, and also thank you for TAEJAE Institute for invitation. And also, just like Graham, I cannot be in person with you guys because I'm now in Germany. I think I'm very enjoyed the two presentations, and Secretary General Pen's speech gave me the confidence because there are so many senior peoples are involved in the AI governance. Traditionally, this is very technical. The senior people are not directly involved in discussing the technical issues previously. But I think this is a very good start and give me confidence. And Ambassador King's speech just structured a pathway for the future of the AI governance, which I think is very important. That's my short response to the presentation.
오케이, 감사합니다. 이제부터 본격적인 토론에 들어가도록 하겠습니다.
We will now begin the discussion in earnest. Ambassador Kim, sorry.
My only comment is I wholeheartedly support moderator's suggestion and also all three panelists' suggestion, because as Graham said, we need to be creative. And also, as Lu Chuanying said, we need leaders' engagement. Otherwise, we cannot solve the problem. And also, as Mr. Yu said, we had to be very realistic in our assessment. We should not overemphasize, over-dramatize, but at the same time, we should not underestimate the risk as well.
네, 감사합니다.
Yes, thank you very much. Now we will begin the discussion in earnest. My first question goes to Mr. Graham Webster. Once again, it's a great honor to be able to ask this question to you and for your participation.
AI와 관련해서 미국 내에서
In the U.S., with regards to AR, there are many divergent opinions. For instance, Sam Altman at OpenAI made some comments.
소위 AI를 혁신 위주로
He pursues
저지해야 된다.
an opinion that there needs to be control and regulation in terms of advancing AI. And there are divergent opinions in the public sector, but there is also a lack of consensus in the public government sector as well. So I think the U.S. would have to put its own house in order before reaching out to other governments. How can a consensus be achieved in the U.S.? How can a consensus be achieved among developers, users, lawmakers? Of course, we cannot expect a unanimous consensus, but how would we be able to achieve consensus among these different stakeholders? I will give you about 4 minutes to respond.
Mr. Webster.
Great. Well, it's a very difficult question, and my first reaction is that the world cannot wait for the United States to get its own house in order with a great many questions. Aside from AI, but just basically, the United States is in a very unstable period politically. Our election is, of course, very relevant to the direction of the US government. And setting aside the possibility of a second Trump administration or a second Biden administration, our US Congress is not very functional right now. We do not do a very good job passing laws, even on issues that we know have been important for decades. So luckily, I don't think the world needs to wait, and I don't think the United States needs to wait to come up with a domestic consensus before it engages abroad. Of course, there are some things where it will not make sense for the US government to go international when there's no consensus at home. But we do have the situation, for instance, that we don't need a domestic consensus, truly, for the US government, for the White House, the State Department, to engage on international diplomacy as to the use of AI in armed conflict or in aggression. And this is lucky because this administration, at least, and I think it's to some extent a bipartisan inclination, believes that it is urgent to engage specifically with China as a major potential military adversary of the United States, but also a major AI developer on these issues. And just a few hours ago, President Biden and Chairman Xi had a phone call that was reported on my drive home from campus. But I've pulled up the White House press readout that they provided, and they emphasized that the two countries are planning in the coming weeks to conduct a direct government-to-government dialogue on issues around AI. And I'm confident global security and military use will be part of that dialogue. To me, this is really important. It shows that something that I believe deeply, while the United States and China have many differences, these threats to international security and to strategic stability are threats to the security of both the United States and Chinese peoples, and of course, everyone else. And it makes me feel optimistic that even in this very tense moment, both US and Chinese governments seem to recognize that they need to begin to talk about this. And the last thing I'll say is, domestic disagreement about what to do about different types of AI applications, I think that's as it should be. It's too early to have a consensus across the entire government or across the industry about every implication of AI. We just don't know if there is an AGI coming in 5 years or perhaps never. There's too much that we don't know. So a consensus would be premature. What we need is that beginning of dialogue, because we do know that it's possible to use AI in military systems. It's possible to make deadly weapons autonomous, and in now or in a few years, whether there's AGI or not, it is possible to use these methods to develop dangerous biological or chemical agents. So I'm a little optimistic, but the challenge is, as you say, sir, extremely big.
네. 미국 내에서의 domestic consensus는 필요 없을 수도 있다라는 요지의 말씀을 해주셨습니다.
So he mentioned that a consensus within the United States or in local countries may not necessarily be needed. Prior to the San Francisco summit last November, there was a report that the United States and China may be limiting AI use and in autonomous weapons. It seems that they have come close to a mutual understanding. Of course, there will be several hurdles left to iron out the details. And so, what kind of hurdles do you think remain? And in order to resolve these hurdles, what can China do? Could you explain to us?
Thank you, moderator. And first, I think when I first read the report from South China Morning Post, I think they're just too optimistic about the dialogue between China and the U.S. So I want to explain it from the political standpoint. So we owe the thanks to Dr. Kissinger because he's leveraged his influence to engage leaders from two sides, emphasizing the importance of the dialogue on AI issues. So, given the current political climate change between China and the U.S., it is not easy job to establish a new channel, to have the dialogue on AI. So his involvement is pretty important to persuade the leader from two sides, and also I don't think the government from both sides are ready to have a talk on AI issue before the summit. So it's really harsh for them. So, and also from the technical perspective, you mentioned about the hurdle. I think the two things. One is anything regarding to the nuclear NC3 system are very sensitive, and also everything related to the AI are complicated. If we put them together, it's easy to say we come out with an idea, do not use AI as a weapon to attack NC3 system. But how to implement it? You need a very comprehensive dialogue between the parties involved, military, involved the diplomat, the armed control expert, something. So I mean, it's not an easy job to implement that. That's the hurdles. Thanks, moderator.
오케이. 만약 여기에 대해서 또 추가 질문인데요.
Then I have an additional question. So from the private sector, I understand that think tanks have been having discussions. The private sector think tanks, discussions and dialogue should be instilled into the discussions of the government. Can it be expanded to the government? And what is your evaluation of dialogue among think tanks?
Yes, I think the think tank rule is very important. So far, as I know, there are 7 track 2 dialogues regarding the China-US AI issues. So it can encompass experts from the policy, military, science, law, and also the tech companies. So the dialogue to my personal involvement, most of them are very productive, and people from two sides all appreciate to have a channel to communicate. It's very inspiring and it's necessary. And but we do not come out with some. I mean, we have some very general result consensus, but not that much specifics. And I mean, it's complicated issue. Need more time to have to discuss. From the think tank and the government relations perspective, I think first our government are very positive to support such kind of the track 2 dialogue between two sides, and also from the nature of the AI governance, it is necessary to have the involvement of the think tank expert, because to my observations that the knowledge is very important, and the government do not have the knowledge. To be honest, I heard a lot of times that people say government know nothing about AI. It may not true, because it's a new topics, and you don't have the talent over there. But the government are learning very fast. But it reflects the truth. You need involvement of the experts from think tank.
네, 사실 미중 간에 싱크탱크 간에 이런 다이얼로그가 계속되고 있다는 것을 아는 것만 해도 상당히 위로가 되는
So I think it's
내용입니다.
reassuring, just the fact that U.S. and China are initiating dialogues. Next, my question goes to Mr. Yu. I think Korea holds a very unique position to work together with like-minded states, and also in helping United States and China talk to each other. It could actually mediate between U.S. and China, and I would like to ask you, how do you think Korea can help China and the U.S. find common ground on future steps? And as you know, 2 summits are going to be held here in Korea. And what kind of role do you see Korea playing in terms of supporting U.S. and China? Good morning. I am a former journalist at Chosunilbo, which is a co-organizer of this event. I worked there for 31 years, and I'm now making preparations to join the political arena. And so it might have been somewhat of a burden to invite me here today. So I would like to thank our host for inviting me today. The RIE meeting was attended by South Korea's Foreign Minister Park Jin. This was held in the Netherlands last year, and I talked to him before and after the summit, and he said that the summit was very significant and it was very big in terms of scale. So he said it was very good that Korea took a very active role, and I think that it was very significant for Korea. And to respond to your questions, Korea is in between the 4 major key players of the world, and I think that there is some advantage to this position. And as you mentioned, 2 very important summits will be held in Korea this year, and this could be an opportunity for Korea. As you know, Korea is the only divided nation in the world, and so we are always facing a threat to our survival. So taking the initiative and taking the lead in these discussions, I think is what we can really appeal to the key players. As a military journalist and a military expert, I do have some concerns. As you know, when it comes to North Korea does not comply with international norms. In the 1990s, this is what happened. We used to talk about North Korea's biochemical weapons, and South Korea used to have those weapons as well. And South Korea joined CWC and it got rid of all of its biochemical weapons. And at the time, it was said that North Korea had 2,500, 3,000 tons of biochemical agents. And at the time, many people were saying that we should have used our own weapons as a negotiating card. So there was some concern and criticism at the time of Korea doing away with its biochemical weapons. If you look at North Korea and the AI advancement, we, of course, do not know for sure. It doesn't seem that their AI development is at a high level. But if you look at their cyber attacks, their level of cyber attacks is very high. But North Korea does not mind international norms or international ethnics. And we need to keep this in mind. If North Korea continues down this path and uses AI for military purposes with disregard for international norms and international governance, if we are to build norms and governments against this context, there will be some elements of that that will not serve Korea. Of course, the Ministry of Defense should actively take part because the topic has to do with the military use of AI. But last year, we did not see so much participation from the Defense Ministry. So I think that in the future, when we hold international conferences, we need to actively invite the Defense Ministry to engage.
Thank you very much. AI and DPRK are urgent issues that Korea faces. Thank you for pointing that out. Next, I will hand over the microphone to Ambassador Kim. During your presentation, you spoke about the inherent characteristics and that this leads to difficulty in governing AI. You served as an ambassador for a long time, and so I want to ask you a question about international dynamics and constraints associated with such international relations. There were many issues faced by the international society. And how can we put these issues into an international harmonizing these initiatives into a common institutional path?
On the first question, apart from technical difficulties inherent in AI, we have also structural difficulties inherent in international relations, which are twofold. The first divide we have is technology divide. Those who have technology do not want to be regulated or slowed down by other countries. Those who don't have technology want to regulate. The same thing on nuclear dynamics as well. Absolute number of UN member states want to prohibit nuclear weapons, but none of those 9 countries don't like it. That's across the bloc politics. So it is where I'm afraid US and China may have consensus. Second divide we have is value divide, which hinders the real cooperation between US and China. Because on many issues, like cyber, China prefers state control, state security, while US prefers market solutions, freedom of expression, freedom of innovation. So how to narrow down these two divides is a structural issue, but there I think UN's role comes in on your second question, because UN is intended as a talk shop. And also UN is the global convener. So whatever problems we have and whatever ideas we have to be fed ultimately to the UN. And that requires very dynamic process of engineering global consensus. And for that, again, I very much agree with Graham and Chuanying's point. Nothing can be done without US and China mutual understanding. And on Korea, short comment is I heard from Foreign Ministry that the RIAIM Summit, which will be hosted by Korea this September, will be co-sponsored by both Foreign Ministry and Defense Ministry. I think they already heard your concern. Thank you so much.
결국은 유엔이 나서야 될 것 같다라는 요지의 말씀을 해주셨습니다.
So I think your main point was that the UN needs to step up. So that concludes the first round of our discussions. I will move on to the second round. As I mentioned earlier, the second round of discussions will focus on artificial general intelligence, AI that is beyond human control. It is seen by some as a potential very serious threat to humanity. And we need consensus building in response to this, but I think that we also need to initiate a social dialogue on the matter as well. Now we're going to try a different format. I'm going to ask several questions to our panelists, and the panelists, please feel free to answer any question you would like. You can add your own questions or make any other relevant comments. The questions were given to me, and they're quite interesting. The first question that I posed to our panelists is, will a dangerous AGI like Skynet ever arrive or not? Will it directly harm humans? Will it be an existential threat? So will this ever come to reality or not? And if so, how soon do you think it will emerge? That's the first question. So it is more like a science fiction question. And so I hope that you can attempt to answer this question. The second is that how should we define AGI? How do we define a dangerous AGI that can threaten human existence? What are essential components that should be included in that definition? And the third question is, what can we do to prevent the arrival of such a dangerous AGI? And the fourth question is, should we fail to prevent the arrival of such a dangerous AGI, what is our plan B? What should our plan B be? I understand that these questions are very difficult. I would be at a loss to answer them myself. So I would like to move in the order, actually in the opposite order of what we had in the first round. So I would like to ask Mr. Webster, then Dr. Liu, then Mr. Yu, and then Ambassador Kim to respond to these questions. So please feel free to answer any of these questions and also add a comment if you would like to, Mr. Webster.
Okay, well, thank you for such an easy question. I think the only way to respond is that we don't know, and no one knows for sure what's possible and if something is going to happen when. I can't speak as an AI developer or a machine learning computer scientist. I can speak as someone who has attended seminars and conferences at Stanford and who has many friends at different AI companies and research centers. And I have read many thousands of words, probably hundreds of thousands of words of debates on the internet among AI policy people. And there is no agreement. And so I naturally find myself to be a little skeptical because the people who are the loudest proponents of the idea that AGI is coming are also people who usually stand to make money if the market believes that AI will be very, very powerful. So just as a cynical person, I started out as a journalist. I don't trust the people who will profit when they give the message, but I don't know. They could be right. So it's very, very tough to go into the follow-up questions. But the most important thing I'll add is there's a definition question that was very important there. First, understanding what does AGI mean is very difficult. I think the OpenAI company, which declares that its mission is to develop safe AGI, they consider it AGI if this general purpose system is capable of doing essentially all economically valuable human tasks. So that's one definition, but they assert that maybe they can do it safely. And I just think this is a difficult definition. Of course, a dangerous one, if you have such an apparatus, is one where either through its design or its structure of control around the use of this tool, it poses major risks. And Skynet is one thing. This is the science fiction idea that maybe the system will wake up and decide that the humans are bad and it would like us to go away. But there are many risks that I think are very important that are short of that. And this is where there's a lot of very important professional thinking about how to put walls around the use of advanced systems, whether it's general intelligence or just highly advanced machine learning systems, so that we can use them for their benefits while avoiding massive harms. And the stakes get higher and higher. If we have autonomous cars, the stakes are the safety of the people in the car and the people on the roads. This is life and death, and this is already happening today. Right next to me, driving home from the campus, I go through downtown San Francisco, and there are autonomous cars. But if we give the power to airplanes, if we give it to infrastructure systems for efficiency, the potential harms get bigger. So to me, I think we can't know about the big question. We have to be a little skeptical, but we don't know. But step by step, as systems are used and developed, it's important to pay attention to those controls. When the risks rise, precautions must rise at pace. And there are many ways to do it, many good ideas. In the US, we have private innovators trying to develop it. They may not face regulation, but they face massive, expensive lawsuits if they cause significant harm. So that's how we have it arranged in this country right now. But of course, we could talk forever. I want to hear what everyone else says about this very easy question.
Thank you very much. 얼라인먼트하고 윤리적인
He
문제.
spoke about alignment and ethical factors that need to be included in AGI. We will go on to Dr. Liu.
Yes, it's a very interesting question, and I agree with what Graham said. So I think we discussed the double-edged sword of AI and AGI in the future, but no, we also need to pay attention to when we enjoy the benefit provided by the AGI in the future. We also need to invest in governance. Specifically, I want to emphasize the AI safety. I don't know whether you guys all pay attention to the difference between AI safety and AI security. And security is more about the state behavior, how responsible use of AI. But AI safety is another category. It's the safety of the system itself, large language model and the algorithm, right? So it's a very technical area. So for that reasons, it's kind of easy to reach consensus among different countries, right? So that's the reason why we are optimistic about the China-US reach agreement on AI safety issues, and also how to deal with the AGI. So I think there's if we talk about the human control, the AI is not out of the control, human in the loop, something like that. The one thing we need to do is still the safety issues. You mentioned the alignment and accountability, transparency, explainability, and the paramount, something like that. I think during my involvement of the track 2 dialogue between China and the US, also some international conference. I think there are a huge consensus in this area. I mean, it is important regarding to the AI governance. It is important to share the knowledge, share the information. But in cyber area, we did not see that happen. People are a lack of willingness to share this. But in the AI safety, I saw a lot of the willingness to share this information, which is critical to deal with the security issue caused by the AGI in the future. And also, from the UN levels, there's open-ended working group and also the CCW dialogues over there. And it's a positive sign to deal with the military use of AI in the future. So I think the government from all over the world are very cautious about that. So we do not need to be too pessimistic about the development of the AGI, because on other side, the investment in governance are still very fast growing. Thank you.
감사합니다.
So we should have a sharing of information. Let's go on to Ambassador Kim.
For me, this is very difficult question, unlike Graham. And I'm very encouraged to hear they are not so much worried about the possibility of AGI posing existential threat. But that said, I think security planners should stand on the pessimistic side in the threat and risk assessment. Because although full details of how AGI will emerge and how much security threats it will pose, still one thing is clear to everybody, which is that we have to do everything to prevent the worst case scenario that super AGI will be dangerous, and if it is allowed to make both tactical and strategic warfighting decision making. And I think we have to start from that point, because setting aside whether it will come and how soon it will come, still we have to be prepared for that possibility, and we have to prevent that possibility. And also we have to think about how we can enhance our preparedness in case prevention fails. So on that, I think US and China can share common concern. So when we expect US-China to deepen their dialogue on this issue, I think how to avoid that catastrophic scenario should be on their agenda. Thank you.
역시 그 태재 연구원답게 1부 토론과 2부 토론을 연결해서 답을 해주셔서
So the answer that was provided connected the first and second part of the panel discussion. AGI should not be limited. So we should first think about in the military domain to resolve this issue. Let's go on to journalist Yu. Webster said that he doesn't know, and I wanted to answer in the same way. I don't know. Stanford leads the fourth industrial revolution, and one at Stanford does not know, so how could I know? So this is a joke, but simply put, the AI that came out in sci-fi, like Skynet, there's a lot of things that have been realized that came out in sci-fi movies. So this may be realized one day, and on AGI used in the military domain. Palantir in the United States, it's a company that is not well known in Korea. CIA and DIA in the US, they carry out projects for these organizations. And during the elimination project of bin Laden, Palantir developed a program that has a name of Godam City, and Palantry supported that operation, and Palantry's AI program was used, and in the Ukraine war, drones using AI technology, it's being trained, and on a higher level than that, information has to be collected and analyzed in order to carry out tactical and strategic decisions. And I understand that Palantry helps in that area. And CEO of Palantry delivered a keynote speech in an important summit last year. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because the science and technology development history is aligned with the history of war we assess. And war and weaponry systems equipped with AI technology can accelerate. In the Gaza area, we see that AI technology is being used in decision-making and in operation of drones. Going into the future, as we see more wars breaking out and conflicts breaking out, the new technology adoption might be expedited. Thank you very much.
So we heard the views of our panelists. We will now open the floor for questions. So I would like to ask our offline participants to raise your hands if you have a question, and we will also be receiving questions from my online participants. Please introduce yourself briefly before you ask your question.
Good
morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will be asking my question in Korean. I'm Kim Jong-yeon. The title of this forum is Age of AI and the Future of Global Security. Will we benefit from AI, or are the risks of AI greater? Nobody knows the answer. But these are my thoughts. We are seeing conflict in Palestine. If you look at the 10 commandments of the Bible, I think if there was just one more commandment, do not engage in war, because the Bible is read by populations around the globe, I cannot but think what our present will be and what our future will be. I've heard many seminars regarding AI, and I believe that the crux of the problem is how will governments make ethical and moral decisions? How will populations make moral and ethical decisions? I think so far we used a method of thinking where we think about the opposition and the proponents, and then we come to a conclusion. So we took a philosophical approach. So I think we need to think about what sort of dialectical process AI will make. As mentioned earlier, AI that is out of human control, and with regards to weaponization of AI, I think we need to think about the information that will be spread. For instance, North Korea can be branded an enemy state, but that information could be input. So I think that who develops the system in the first place, who trains the model in the first place, bears great responsibility, because if this sort of information is put in the data set, then that will be what is a fact, and we won't be able to use human judgment. So I would like to ask your thoughts on that.
So we will gather additional questions and then allow the panelists to answer them together. Next question.
예, 저는 저 과학기술단체 총연합회 회장 이태식입니다.
I am Tae-Shik Lee from the youth group representing the Science Technology Complex. Thank you very much for the discussion, and I am grateful to TAEJAE Future Consensus Institute for selecting such an important topic. I am thinking it in a slightly different way. Why are we asking this question to ourselves? We should ask AI. And I asked this question. This is what ChatGPT-4 is saying. And it says that Skynet's Terminator, what will happen? And I asked this question to ChatGPT and says that this scenario is far from the reality of the current technology, that there are technical limitations and ethical and moral methods in which we can prevent this from being carried out. And I asked in English.
Protect your risk. However, we fail, then what is your plan B? AI가 대답했습니다. 초기 조치가 실패한 경우에 대비해서 계획비는 다음과 같은.
So the plan B should include these principles is the answer. That there should be rapid response system. Second, we should have contingency plans, and we should minimize the damage. We should have regulations and norms. We should have education and continuous monitoring, and there should be cooperation. So we should prevent additional damage, and we should continuously support ethical development of AI. That was the answer provided. So what I would like to say is that can AI create its own risk? That was asked in addition, and it says that AI can lead to direct and indirect risks. Therefore, to ensure responsible and ethical development of AI, it needs transparency and autonomy and control, and it should reflect the values of humanity. And autonomous vehicles, should it operate for the pedestrians or for its passengers? So those are questions that can be posed to AI, and such ethical questions are important. Cyber security and personal information should be protected. And one person mentioned bias, and we also have to be aware of the biases that might be associated with the developers. If there is bias, then we should overcome this. Therefore, we need to think about educating and retraining the system. On weaponization, we already talked about this a lot. There is a race on deploying AI. We need to think about various factors in deploying this. So going beyond what we are just concerned about, AI itself is directing us in ways of how we can overcome these difficulties. So these discussions are important, but I think if you ask AI may give us the answers.
We don't have any hands raised at the moment, so we would like to invite a response to the questions. I will try to summarize the questions. I think the first question was about the initial developer of AI and the intention of that developer and how that will impact the AI in its future thinking due to the dialectical process. The second question or comment was that perhaps we need to invite AI to our discussions. I think that we do recognize a circularity here, but I would first like to invite our panelists to comment or answer the questions just raised. So who would like to attempt to answer the two questions? Ambassador Kim?
I think those two questions are very fundamental ones. And I agree that the initial developer of AI algorithm matters a lot. But I'm afraid that also it depends on how others use it. Because we have one recent incident in which safety protocols ingrained by the designers are jailbroken. And then it was dispersed on the internet so that anybody who wants to use that technology have that access, including terrorists. So the challenge here is how we can engrave safety and ethical standards from the development stage, but also to the use stage, which is a very challenging question on that I don't have an answer. And also, I also tried ChatGPT many times, and their answers to me all politically correct. They say all the nice words. Because I think they were designed to avoid unnecessary controversies. But some answers I couldn't trust 100% because they intentionally avoid sensitive questions, particularly pertaining to their existence. So I think those two caveats I want to add. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else to respond?
About the developer, I think the developer and the company are pretty serious about the ethic and the moral issues regarding to the AI system, because I know about 7 years ago, the IEEE, which is the leading standard organization of the world, they created 10 working groups on the AI ethic. So, I mean, the technicians or scientists, they're pretty serious about they know, because they know the power of AI. So they are very serious about this ethnic issues. So, but you cannot, guarantee that everybody in the field are, follow some kind of morals and ethnic considerations. There are better guys over there, so you cannot prevent. So that is another story about the security part, right? How to responsible use of how develop the AI and use the AI. So that's the reason why it's important to have a very holistic, comprehensive governance in the field, because it involved so many people, so many stakeholders.
네, 감사합니다. 저는 제가 의견을 간단히 얘기를
I would like to share my own
AI 개발자가
opinion.
자기가 개발한 AI가 이런 능력을 어떻게 가질 수 있는지를 이해 못하는 게
I
AI의 현재 특성이기
think that the
때문에
characteristic of AI is that AI developers do not have a full understanding of how AI reacts. So I think that is one thing we need to consider. Do we have any further questions from the floor?
저 뒤에 계십니다.
Yes, the lady in the back. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. And it was an interesting discussion. Thank you. I have two questions. The first question will be in Korean. The second question will be in English. The first question is that if you look at U.S. and China, there is a conflict regarding the hegemony of technology. And do you think that realistically cooperation in terms of creating AI rules is viable?
Tricky question in advance, but I would like to ask on exploring the role and importance of public and private partnerships, so-called PPP. So please kindly share case studies on the role and importance of public-private partnerships in the AI sector. So how can such partnerships can help find a balance between the technological innovation and government regulation? That's my question. Thank you.
네, 저 private 하고 퍼블릭 그거는 웹스터 씨께서 좀 답을 해주시기를 부탁.
I think Mr. Webster can respond to the question regarding the public-private partnership, and Ambassador Kim could respond to the first question. I think the first question is very important. If you look at the U.S. and China, they are pledging cooperation, but they are in this struggle over technological hegemony.
Your assessment that we have to assume technology competition between US and China will intensify because both believe their future, including who will be the number one or who will be the number two, will depend on who is the ultimate winner in technology. So we have to assume that competition cannot be avoided. But one shining light is that both leaders, as Graham said in last night's telephone conversation, that that competition should be managed responsibly and peacefully. So there, I think we can find an entry point on how we can ensure responsible state behavior in military domain, very much consonant with our theme today.
갈등이지만 협력할 수 있을 것이다. 이런 요지의 말씀이시죠?
Or they must.
So you're talking about how they will engage in cooperation amidst competition. Yes, they must.
Webster, can you respond to the second question?
Yeah, I think it's my turn. I struggle to think clearly about examples of public-private partnerships, although it's an important topic. What comes to mind, actually, for me, and this is probably because I'm really a researcher about China's technology policy and US-China relations, actually is the example that we see today of city governments, local governments in large cities in China, especially Beijing, have collaborated with university researchers and NGOs and companies to provide some resources to develop AI models, as well as to develop communities of experts who think about AI ethics and policy. And this Chinese model of public-private partnership in AI extends beyond these local positions. And this is in part because across the world, there are limited resources of computation power and data for training models. But because of US policy and allied cooperation, China is especially pressed for computation resources. So there's another layer where the Chinese government is working to coordinate national resources for computation centers so that you don't have to be Alibaba or Tencent or Baidu or one of the largest Chinese tech companies to access large data centers. So this is perhaps a characteristic of China's development and governance model, but I think it could be a model for global cooperation and public-private partnerships, because resources will be limited, and especially for countries where there are even less resources than China and certainly the United States. Some even international public-private partnership might be a good idea to spread the benefits of the less dangerous uses of AI to people who right now cannot afford large numbers of specialized chips and who don't have access to the large databases that big companies have. So my answer is maybe China has a model, but we'll see.
Okay, Dr. Lu seems to have something in mind to say. Do you have something in mind to add?
So I think in AI and other digital technology areas, the PPP is kind of necessary. I cannot think of a scenario or a case that's not adapted to the public-private partnership. Because, in these areas, the tech companies and private sectors, they own the resources, they own the technology, talent, and they know the technology much better than the government. If government want to really understand the technology, they need to come to the tech companies. If they want to regulate for example, like the regulation to be fully implemented, they need to ask the private sector's advice in advance. So some of you may have an idea that China is the government is very strong. Government can control everything, but the reality is it's very difficult. If you control too much, you will kill the industry, right? So when the ChatGPT become, it's hard decision for Chinese government to whether we need to support the generative AI or not, because it was challenges of the authorities of the government. But the answer is quite clear. The government make compromise to fully support the development of the generative AI.
Thank you for the additional comments. 온라인에서 질문이 하나 들어와서
We have a question that was received online. So I will read the question on behalf of the question that was written online. Soy Ashley Park asked this question in English.
How might advancements in AI and its applications influence the strategic priorities and security policies in the Indo-Pacific? It's a geopolitical question. Probably this ambassador.
Okay. Broad and tough question, because I think two factors are at work. Because all the major players, maybe except to Europe, are concentrated in Indo-Pacific arena, and that means if we want to move toward any glimpse of consensus or agreement building, we need consensus, first of all, in the Indo-Pacific area, because Indo-Pacific area includes not only the leaders from the two worlds, the first one led by US, and second one led by China, but also third world like India and Indonesia. So I think it is a big challenge, but and also Korea can play a role to work for consensus building in the Indo-Pacific area, then it will provide the answer to the global community. That's the only answer I can answer is that.
네, 이분이 두 번째 질문도 던지셨는데 이 두 번째 질문이 우리
There was a second question.
이거는 좀 제가 다른 질문으로 대체해서
And I think that perhaps I can replace that question with another question to Mr. Yu. You mentioned North Korea. Do you see any possibility that North Korea might join in the dialogue regarding AI, in your opinion? As Ambassador Kim responded to the U.S.-China competition, he said that U.S. and China must cooperate. I think that is the only response that I can offer to you regarding this question. I'm sure all of you know, given the history of inter-Korean relations and North Korea's behavior, I am a little bit more pessimistic than optimistic about the chances of North Korean participation, realistically speaking. But if you think about the need, I think that North Korea must be part of these dialogues, so we must make efforts to draw in North Korea as much as possible. We have carried out this session for more than an hour right now, and I learned a lot, and I'm sure that it was very fruitful for our participants as well. This is a very significant forum. we discussed how we need a global AI governance organization, and I hope that this forum can serve as the first stepping towards that end. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you can all enjoy the spring weather on your way home. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you very much for participating in today's forum. On your way out, please remember to return the interpretation receivers at the desk. And today's forum will be uploaded onto TAEJAE Future Consensus Institute for you to watch again. Thank you very much.